She was paid $1,000 every week to keep him alive, yet every pill she slipped into his trembling hand dragged him closer to his grave. "Trust me. This will help you sleep," she whispered once, her eyes steady, her tone calm. And he believed her. Because why wouldn't he? Nurses are meant to heal, to protect, to extend life, not to shorten it. But behind the warm smile and the soft words was a plan, one that would leave an old man weaker with every dose, one that would make even his closest family members question whether it was simply age catching up to him, or something far more deliberate. For months, he suffered in silence. The dizziness, the fainting spells, the nights where he could hardly breathe. He tried to convince himself it was nothing but the weight of his years. But late at night, lying awake in a house that had once been filled with laughter, he began to suspect otherwise. "She's killing me, slowly," he muttered once into the darkness. But there was no one to hear him. To his children, she was the perfect caregiver, attentive, reliable, always smiling when they visited. She kept the house tidy, she kept him fed, she spoke gently when his memory faltered. How could they ever imagine she was doing the opposite of her duty? And yet, the truth, when it finally surfaced, was almost too shocking to believe. Because what started as an innocent hire, a nurse chosen to watch over an aging man, would soon unravel into one of the darkest stories of betrayal imaginable. This was not a random act of cruelty. It was calculated. Every pill, every prescription, every smile. And when investigators finally pieced it together, they uncovered a chilling truth. The woman entrusted with his life had been plotting his final breath all along. But why? Was it money? Was it revenge? Or was it something buried deep within her past? The answer would stun even the most hardened detectives. And as we peel back the layers of this story, you'll see how easily trust can be turned into a weapon, how the very hands hired to protect can become the hands that destroy. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because trust me, by the time this story reaches its conclusion, you will be left questioning just how much you truly know about the people closest to you. She was the caregiver, he was the patient, but their story was never about care. It was about control, and the end would be nothing short of devastating. He was no ordinary patient. To the outside world, he was a man who had lived a full life, an investor, a philanthropist, a father whose children had all grown and moved far away. Wealthy, respected, and known in his community as a man who valued loyalty. But with age came fragility, and with fragility came the need for constant care. That is when she entered his life. And the nurse? At first glance, she was the definition of trustworthiness. Immaculate uniform, calm composure, soft voice that carried just the right blend of authority and warmth. Families like his wanted someone exactly like her, someone who would treat their aging father with patience and dignity. But questions linger now, questions that haunt this story. Why would a caregiver, sworn to protect and heal, slowly and methodically destroy the very life she was paid to preserve? Was she desperate for money? Did she see his fortune as an opportunity too tempting to resist? Or was it something more personal? Perhaps resentment, revenge, or even a hidden connection no one could have guessed? And how long had the plan been in motion? Did she arrive with evil intentions from the very first day she stepped into his home? Or did the temptation grow gradually, until she could no longer resist the thought of profiting from his death? Each dose of medicine she measured, each meal she prepared, each moment she stood over him while he slept. Was it care or calculation? For weeks, no one suspected her. Not his neighbors, not his children who visited only occasionally, not even the doctors who wrote the prescriptions. The decline looked natural, and she looked devoted. But the truth hiding behind those walls was darker than anyone imagined. And when the truth finally came out, It raised yet another haunting question. If the very person meant to guard our final years can instead hasten our end, how many other stories like this are happening right now, unseen, behind closed doors? Before we go deeper into this chilling case, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what you're about to discover is a story of betrayal unlike any other. A story where the line between care and cruelty disappeared, and where one man's life became the price for someone else's ambition. He had once been the kind of man who seemed untouchable. In his younger years, his name carried weight in the business community. Deals were signed because of his handshake. Fortunes were made because of his vision. He built companies, created jobs, and raised a family that adored him. But by the time he reached his late 70s, the empire he built no longer mattered. His body had slowed down. His hands trembled when he tried to pour his morning coffee. His memory sometimes betrayed him. And in the silence of his grand home, he felt something worse than age creeping in: loneliness. His wife had passed away years earlier, leaving behind a void no success could fill. His children were grown, scattered across different states, caught up in their own careers and families. They visited, yes, but not as often as he wished. And so, the long nights became longer, the hours stretching endlessly between doctor's appointments and empty dinners. It was his eldest daughter who first suggested hiring help. "Dad, you need someone there full-time," she insisted. "Just until you get stronger. Someone who can make sure you're eating, taking your meds, not skipping appointments." He had resisted. "I don't need a babysitter," he muttered. Pride was the one thing old age hadn't stripped away. But eventually, he relented, and that was when she entered his life. Her name was Anna. On paper, she was perfect. A licensed nurse with glowing references, experience in elder care, and a gentle presence that immediately calmed his children's worries. When she arrived for the first time, she wore her hair pulled neatly back, her uniform spotless. She greeted him with a warm smile. "Mr. Collins, it's a privilege to care for you," she said softly. He studied her for a moment, then gave a reluctant nod. "Just don't treat me like I'm already gone." She laughed, a quiet, reassuring laugh. "I wouldn't dream of it." And so it began. The first weeks were smooth. She prepared his meals, timed his medications, even read aloud from the newspapers when his eyesight tired. To the neighbors, she was a blessing. To his children, she was an answer to prayer. To him, she was a quiet companion, someone who filled the silence without making it heavy. But here is where the story turns. Because while everyone else saw a perfect nurse, there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when he saw something else. It started with the pills. At first he noticed nothing. But gradually, he realized she was the one controlling every dose, never allowing him to open the bottles himself. "Anna, I can manage my own medicine," he told her once, reaching for the cabinet. She closed it firmly, her smile unwavering. "Doctor's orders, Mr. Collins. We don't want any mistakes." It sounded reasonable, but something about her tone lingered with him. Then came the food. Meals that looked wholesome but always left him strangely groggy afterward. Soups, teas, herbal blends she insisted were good for his digestion. "You'll feel better after this," she said, placing a steaming mug in front of him. He sipped obediently, but later that night, lying awake with his heart racing, he began to wonder what exactly he had swallowed. Still, when his children visited, they saw only comfort. "Dad, you look great," his youngest son remarked one weekend. "Anna's really taking good care of you." He forced a smile. "Yes, she is." But inside, doubt was taking root. And there were other signs, small, easy-to-dismiss details. Once, he caught her standing in his study, her eyes lingering on the safe hidden behind the bookshelf. When he cleared his throat, she jumped slightly and smiled as if nothing was amiss. "Just dusting," she said. Another time, late at night, he awoke to the faint sound of her on the phone. Her voice was low, urgent, words slipping through the walls. "It's almost done. Just a little longer." When she noticed him the next morning watching her closely, she tilted her head. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," he lied. The truth was, sleep had abandoned him, because for the first time he began to fear not his age, not his loneliness, but the person sitting at his bedside each night. And yet, what could he do? His children trusted her. The doctors trusted her. The world saw her as devoted. But he saw something else, something he could not yet prove. What he didn't know then was that every smile she offered, every kind gesture, every carefully measured pill was part of a larger plan, a plan that had begun long before she stepped into his house. And by the time the pieces finally fell into place, it would be too late to turn back. At first, the changes were subtle. A little more dizziness after dinner, a heavier weakness in the mornings, the kind of symptoms anyone could dismiss as just old age. But Mr. Collins knew his body. He had lived long enough to recognize the difference between natural frailty and something unnatural. "Anna," he asked one evening, staring at the glass of water she offered, "what exactly is in these pills?" She smiled, the same calm, patient smile she always wore. "Exactly what the doctor prescribed. Nothing more, nothing less." He studied her face. Her tone was steady, her expression kind, and yet the unease in his chest only deepened. Days stretched into weeks. His appetite withered. His legs felt like stone when he tried to walk the garden path. He no longer trusted himself to go down the staircase alone. And always, she was there, watching, guiding, smiling. To the outside world, she was the perfect nurse. Neighbors waved when they saw her wheeling him onto the porch. His children praised her every chance they got. "She's keeping you alive, Dad," his daughter insisted. "You'd be lost without her." But in the quiet of the night, when the house was still, Mr. Collins whispered into the darkness, "She's killing me, one pill at a time." He tried to fight back. Some nights he pretended to swallow the pills, slipping them beneath his tongue until she left the room. But somehow she always seemed to know. "Don't play games, Mr. Collins," she said once, her voice sharper than he had ever heard it. "These medicines are for your good. For your good." The words echoed in his head, twisting. It was around this time that he began noticing the papers, medical forms, insurance slips, documents that seemed oddly out of place on his desk. Once, he caught sight of his own signature, except it wasn't his handwriting. He confronted her. "Did you forge this?" he demanded, his voice trembling with more fear than anger. Her smile returned instantly, practiced and polished. "Of course not. You must have forgotten signing it. These things happen with age." And just like that, she turned doubt into shame. He lowered his eyes, doubting himself, questioning his own memory. But the feeling wouldn't leave. He grew weaker still. His chest ached after every meal. His thoughts became clouded, fog creeping into once sharp conversations. There were days he could barely rise from bed. And yet, the visits from his children continued to reassure them that all was well. Anna made sure of it. She greeted them warmly, brought tea, showed them carefully organized notes about his care. "Your father is in safe hands," she would say, her voice smooth, her presence unwavering. Safe hands. The irony gnawed at him, because late at night, he no longer felt safe. One evening he made a decision. He would keep a journal, documenting every symptom, every strange dose, every word she said that felt off. He hid it beneath the floorboard in his study, the only place he trusted she would not look. "Day 1, he wrote with trembling fingers. "Anna gave me the blue pills again tonight, said they were for sleep, but I woke up gasping for air. Day 6, I feel weaker than ever. I think she knows I'm writing this. Day 12, if anything happens to me, it will not be old age, it will be her." But the journal would remain hidden for now, because before anyone else could see it, the story reached its breaking point. It was a stormy night when it happened. Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder rolled across the sky. Mr. Collins sat in his chair, his body trembling as Anna handed him his nightly dose. "Drink up," she said softly. He stared at the pills, his heart pounding. "No," he whispered. "Not tonight." Her smile faltered, just for a moment. "Don't be difficult." I said no. A silence hung heavy in the room, and then, with a sigh, she leaned closer. "You don't have a choice." He wanted to protest, to stand, to run, but his legs would not obey him. His chest tightened, his vision blurred. He clutched the armrest, fighting for breath. The last thing he remembered was her face, calm as ever, watching as he collapsed to the floor. And for a moment he wondered if this was the end. But it wasn't. Because his collapse would set into motion a chain of events that even Anna had not anticipated. And when the truth began to emerge, it would shock everyone who thought they knew her. When Mr. Collins collapsed on that stormy night, the world seemed to shrink into silence. His body hit the floor with a dull thud, his hands trembling as he gasped for air. Lightning flashed through the windows, illuminating the room in brief bursts of white. And there, kneeling beside him, was Anna. Her hands were steady, her voice calm. "Stay with me," she whispered, pressing her fingers to his wrist as though she were checking his pulse. "You'll be all right." To anyone watching, it was the image of devotion. A caregiver doing everything in her power to keep her patient alive. But there was no one to watch. By the time the ambulance arrived, Anna had already placed herself at the center of the story. She told paramedics how Mr. Collins had been fragile all week, how she had begged him to take his medicine, how she had rushed to his side the moment he fell. They nodded, taking her account at face value. After all, she was the nurse, the trusted one, the one in charge. At the hospital, doctors swarmed around the elderly man, running tests, stabilizing his breathing. His family was called, rushing through the storm to see their father lying pale and unresponsive beneath fluorescent lights. And waiting in the hallway, clutching his medical files to her chest, was Anna. "She saved him," his daughter said through tears, hugging the nurse with gratitude. "We don't know what we'd do without you." Anna smiled, her face a mask of relief and exhaustion. "He's strong," she replied softly. "But we'll need to be careful. Every day is a battle." In that moment, suspicion was the last thing on anyone's mind. They saw her as the hero of the night, the woman who had kept their father alive. But not everyone was convinced. One of the attending physicians, Dr. Harris, had been overseeing Mr. Collins's case for months. He knew his patient's history, his progress, his setbacks. And something about Anna's version didn't sit right. He had never prescribed the combination of pills she claimed to be giving. He had never authorized the dosages she insisted were doctor's orders. He didn't voice it immediately, but in his notes that night, Dr. Harris scribbled a single line that would later prove critical. "Review medications. Something off." Back at the Collins estate, the house felt heavier in Anna's absence. The storm had passed, but the quiet was unsettling. In the study beneath the loose floorboard, Mr. Collins's hidden journal remained undiscovered. Its pages, filled with his desperate warnings, waited like a silent witness to the truth. For now, though, Anna was untouchable. She visited him daily at the hospital, sitting by his bedside, feeding him soup, speaking softly to his children about his progress. She maintained her perfect image, the devoted nurse holding the family together. But fractures were beginning to show. 2 weeks after his collapse, financial advisor Paul Reynolds flagged unusual withdrawals from Mr. Collins's accounts. Large sums of money had been transferred, signed with shaky handwriting that didn't match his usual style. When he brought it up to the family, they brushed it aside. "Dad isn't well," they said. "Maybe he made arrangements we don't know about. Anna's been helping him with paperwork." Still, the doubt lingered. And then came the night shift nurse. At the hospital, where Mr. Collins remained under observation, a young nurse named Evelyn noticed something odd. She had stepped into the room late one evening and found Anna leaning over the bedside, syringe in hand. Evelyn froze. "What are you doing?" she asked cautiously. Anna turned, her expression unbothered. "Just giving him his injection. He needs it before bed." Evelyn frowned. "That's not listed on his chart." For a moment the two women locked eyes. Then Anna's smile returned, practiced and smooth. "Oh, the doctor approved it verbally. You must not have been updated." But Evelyn couldn't shake the unease. The next morning she filed a quiet report with her supervisor. It was vague, cautious, just enough to note the inconsistency without directly accusing a colleague. After all, accusing a senior caregiver was no small thing. And yet that single report added weight to Dr. Harris's growing suspicion. Behind the walls of professionalism, a quiet investigation began. Prescriptions were cross-checked, signatures reviewed, Anna's tidy reports examined more closely. And slowly patterns emerged. Too many changes in medication, none of them approved. Too many documents bearing signatures that didn't quite align. Too many stories from Anna that, when compared, contradicted one another. But Anna was clever. Each time a question arose, she had an answer ready. Each time a doubt was raised, she leaned on her charm, her reputation, her image of selfless care. "She's been with him for months," the family argued. "She's the only reason he's still here." That shield of trust would protect her, at least for a little while longer. Yet the cracks were undeniable. And when Mr. Collins finally regained enough strength to speak, his voice hoarse but determined, he looked his son in the eye and whispered, "She's not saving me. She's killing me." The words shook his son to the core. He wanted to dismiss them, to chalk them up to confusion, to the haze of medication and illness. But in his father's eyes he saw something that could not be ignored. Fear. Real, unshakable fear. And so, for the first time, the family began to listen. They didn't confront Anna directly. Not yet. Instead, they contacted the police, framing it as a precaution. "We just want to be sure," they explained. "If there's nothing to it, then no harm done." Detectives agreed to review the situation. Quietly, at first. They gathered records, spoke with doctors, interviewed staff. And though nothing concrete surfaced immediately, the inconsistencies were enough to keep them digging. Meanwhile, Anna carried on as though nothing had changed. She arrived each morning with flowers, held Mr. Collins's hand, updated his children with gentle optimism. She played her role flawlessly. But behind the curtain, the stage was shifting. The savior mask she wore was beginning to crack. And as investigators pressed further, she would soon realize that the very image that had shielded her was now drawing suspicion straight to her doorstep. Because if she wasn't the hero she claimed to be, then what was she? And if Mr. Collins was right, how close had she already brought him to his grave? Detectives knew this case would not be simple. On the surface, Anna appeared flawless, a nurse with impeccable credentials, a glowing reputation, and the trust of an entire family. But beneath that polished exterior, inconsistencies were piling up, and each new detail pulled them deeper into a story that seemed stranger than fiction. The first breakthrough came from the financial records. Paul Reynolds, the family's financial advisor, provided copies of the recent transactions. Large sums had been moved into accounts under unfamiliar names, all traced back to the weeks following Anna's employment. One particular transfer stood out, $25,000 wired to an account in her sister's name. When questioned, Anna explained it away easily. "Mr. Collins asked me to handle those transactions," she told the detectives calmly. "He wanted to support my family and he insisted on using his money. He said I was like a daughter to him." The family, seated beside her during questioning, nodded along. "That sounds like Dad," his daughter agreed. "He's always been generous." It seemed airtight. But the detectives weren't satisfied. Next, they dug into the prescriptions. Dr. Harris confirmed that several of the medications listed in Anna's reports had never been prescribed by him. Others were in doses far stronger than he would ever authorize for a man of Mr. Collins's age. And when handwriting experts examined the signatures, they concluded that at least 3 were forged. Still, there was a problem. The evidence was circumstantial. Forged documents suggested dishonesty, but they did not prove intent to kill. Suspicious financial transfers hinted at exploitation, but they did not confirm it. The detectives needed something stronger, something undeniable. That something came from a voice. Evelyn, the young night nurse, had grown increasingly uneasy since the syringe incident. After weeks of debating with herself, she finally confessed everything to investigators. She described walking in on Anna with the needle, the way Anna brushed it off, the coldness in her eyes. "She scares me," Evelyn admitted. "I can't explain it, but when I looked at her, it didn't feel like I was looking at a nurse. It felt like I was looking at someone who wanted control. Complete control." Her testimony was added to the growing file, strengthening the case. Meanwhile, Mr. Collins remained in the hospital, slowly regaining his strength. His children continued to defend Anna publicly, praising her care and devotion. But behind closed doors, doubt crept in. His son, still haunted by his father's whispered words, "She's killing me," began visiting at odd hours, watching Anna more closely, and that's when he noticed something chilling. During one visit, he found Anna alone in his father's room, holding a small glass vial. She quickly slipped it back into her pocket when he entered, her smile never faltering. "Just preparing his medicine," she explained. But the son couldn't shake the unease. Later, when he discreetly checked the hospital's supply logs, he realized that the vial Anna carried wasn't listed anywhere. It didn't belong. That night, he made the call that would change everything. He contacted detectives directly, telling them what he had seen. And with that tip, they moved swiftly. The very next evening, officers set up quiet surveillance in Mr. Collins's hospital room. Hidden cameras were placed. Logs were checked hourly. Every movement, every dose, every interaction was recorded. For days, nothing happened. Anna played her role flawlessly, attentive and kind, never making a wrong move. Detectives began to worry that perhaps she had caught on. But then, on the 4th night, they captured the footage that sealed her fate. The video showed Anna preparing a syringe, her hands steady, her face calm. She leaned over Mr. Collins, whispering softly as though comforting him. But instead of administering the medication prescribed by the hospital, she injected a clear liquid from her own vial. The monitors told the story instantly. His breathing slowed. His pulse weakened. The alarms beeped frantically as nurses rushed in. And there, standing by his bedside, was Anna, her face composed, as though she had done nothing unusual at all. The footage was undeniable. When detectives confronted her, Anna maintained her innocence to the very end. "I was helping him sleep," she insisted. "It was just a mild sedative. He begged me for it. You don't understand. He trusted me." But the evidence said otherwise. Combined with the forged documents, the financial transfers, and the eyewitness accounts, the video painted a chilling picture. This was not a caregiver. This was a predator, cloaked in the uniform of compassion. The Collins family was devastated. His children wept as they replayed the footage, unable to reconcile the image of the kind nurse they had trusted with the reality before them. "We let her into our home," his daughter sobbed. "We thanked her. We praised her. And all along she was trying to destroy him." Mr. Collins himself, frail but alive, listened quietly as the truth unfolded. When detectives asked if he had suspected it all along, he nodded slowly. "I told you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "She was killing me." From that point forward, the case accelerated. Prosecutors prepared charges. Media outlets swarmed the story, dubbing Anna the angel of death. Neighbors who had once waved at her now spoke of strange feelings they had ignored, subtle unease they could never explain. And yet, even as the evidence mounted, Anna never broke. She sat in the interrogation room, calm and composed, insisting she had only ever acted in his best interest. "Sometimes," she said softly, staring at the detectives, "you have to do what's necessary, even if no one understands." The room went cold, because in her eyes, there was no guilt, no remorse, only conviction. And that was perhaps the most terrifying truth of all. But this was only the beginning. Court dates loomed, testimonies were prepared, and as the trial approached, one question remained unanswered. Why? Why would a nurse paid handsomely and trusted completely plot the slow destruction of the man she was hired to protect? The answer, when it came, would shake everyone to their core. The trial was set for spring, and by the time it opened, the case had already consumed headlines across the state. News anchors debated Anna's psychology, experts on TV discussed caregiver exploitation, and true crime podcasts picked apart every shred of evidence. But while the public saw a chilling case of attempted murder, investigators suspected there was something deeper. Something that explained why a seemingly perfect nurse had risked everything to orchestrate the slow unraveling of a wealthy patriarch. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy. Reporters filled every seat, their pens scratching furiously as Anna was led in. She wore no uniform now, only the bland beige of county-issued clothing. Yet even in shackles, she carried herself with eerie calm. Her eyes scanned the room like she was studying it, memorizing it, as though this were just another shift she had to endure. The prosecution wasted no time. They presented the surveillance footage, the forged prescriptions, the financial transfers, and Evelyn's testimony about the syringe. Each piece landed like a hammer strike, painting Anna as a manipulative predator. But the defense had a strategy too. They leaned hard into the image of a compassionate caregiver caught in a misunderstanding. The liquid in the syringe, they claimed, was a harmless over-the-counter sedative. The financial transfers, generous gifts authorized by Mr. Collins himself. The forged prescriptions, clerical errors. It was a bold defense, and for a while the jury wavered. Then came the moment that cracked the case wide open. The prosecution called a surprise witness, Margaret Reynolds, Mr. Collins's late wife's younger sister. She hadn't been in the family's inner circle for years, but her testimony was explosive. She told the court that Anna was no stranger. In fact, Margaret had seen her once before, nearly a decade earlier, in another town, under a different name. Back then, Anna had been hired by Margaret's elderly neighbor, a wealthy widower. That man had died suddenly, under circumstances that were never fully explained. And afterward, Margaret remembered, rumors had swirled about financial inconsistencies, a missing will, and a nurse who disappeared without a trace. The courtroom buzzed with whispers. Reporters scribbled faster. The prosecution dug deeper, producing documents that linked Anna to 3 other elderly patients across 2 states, each with sudden declines, suspicious transfers of money, and unexplained medication changes. The pattern was undeniable. But it was what Anna finally revealed herself that shook everyone to the core. During her cross-examination, pressed under the relentless questioning of the prosecutor, Anna's calm mask slipped. Just slightly. "You've been accused of forging documents, of manipulating accounts, of administering unprescribed drugs," the prosecutor said, voice rising. "Why would you do that? Why target this family?" For the first time, Anna smiled. A slow, unsettling smile that spread across her face like a crack in glass. "Why?" she repeated softly. Her voice was steady, almost tender. "Because men like him take and take. They sit on their fortunes while the rest of us scrape by. They smile, they charm, and they think their money makes them untouchable. But everyone has a weakness, and I've made it my duty to find it." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. "You admit it then?" the prosecutor pressed. "You were deliberately poisoning him?" Anna's eyes glinted. "Poisoning? No. Correcting. Balancing the scales. Call it justice if you like." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Mr. Collins's children sat frozen, their faces pale. Their father, sitting frail in his wheelchair, turned his eyes downward, unwilling to meet hers. The prosecutor leaned forward. "Justice? You were hired to care for him." "And I did," Anna replied evenly. "I cared for him better than anyone. I gave him comfort, attention, companionship. And when the time came, I gave him something else too. An ending he deserved." Her words hung in the air like poison. The defense scrambled, objecting furiously, but the damage was done. The jury had seen her for what she was. Not a misguided nurse, not a misunderstood caregiver, but a woman who believed she was judge, jury, and executioner. But behind her calm words lay a more chilling revelation. Investigators later uncovered that Anna had grown up in poverty, watching her own father die slowly after being denied care by a wealthy employer who refused to pay for his treatment. From that moment on, something inside her twisted. She enrolled in nursing not just to heal, but to control, to place herself in the homes of the powerful, the wealthy, the untouchable, and to dismantle them from the inside. She wasn't killing randomly. She was choosing. The angel of death, the media called her. But to Anna, she was something else entirely. A reckoner. A quiet storm that slipped into mansions under the guise of compassion, leaving only ruin behind. As the trial reached its end, the prosecution delivered their closing argument with precision. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is not about care. This is not about misunderstanding. This is about power." Anna used the mask of kindness to gain control. She forged documents, stole money, manipulated lives, and when that wasn't enough, she reached for the syringe. If not for surveillance, if not for vigilance, Mr. Collins would not be alive today. Do not mistake her calm for innocence. It is the calm of someone who believes she is smarter than all of us. But today, justice must speak louder than her delusion. When the jury returned, their verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Anna showed no reaction. She stood still as the judge sentenced her, her face a blank canvas. Only once, as she was led away, did she turn her head toward the Collins family. And she smiled again. Not a smile of regret, not a smile of sorrow, but the smile of someone who had played her game to the very end. For the Collins family, healing would take years. The daughter never forgave herself for defending Anna so blindly. The son struggled with nightmares of his father whispering, "She's killing me." And Mr. Collins himself lived out his final years quieter, more withdrawn, forever scarred by the betrayal that nearly ended his life. But one thing remained clear. Anna's story was no simple tale of greed or madness. It was something darker, a philosophy carried out with chilling conviction. And as the prison gates closed behind her, whispers spread of other families in other towns, still wondering whether the nurse who once smiled at their bedside was truly there to heal them, or to finish them. Because once someone like Anna has crossed that line, the scariest question isn't why did she do it, it's how many more are out there. The verdict echoed far beyond the courtroom. Within hours, headlines screamed across the nation. The angel of death nurse sentenced. Caregiver turned predator. Justice for the Collins family. Podcasts dissected her smile. Documentaries pitched their bids, and online sleuths flooded forums with theories. Some painted Anna as a monster, others as a victim of a broken system who turned her grief into vengeance. But one truth was undeniable. People were terrified. Because Anna had looked ordinary, approachable, even trustworthy. And if someone like her could slip unnoticed into a family's home for months, who else could be out there right now? For the Collins family, the aftermath was not tidy justice. It was splintered healing. Evelyn, the granddaughter who had first spotted the syringe, became hypervigilant. Every pill bottle, every dosage in her own home was double-checked, triple-checked. She carried the guilt of knowing that had she not walked in that night, her grandfather would be gone. Mr. Collins survived, but he never fully recovered from the trauma. He spent his remaining years with a shadow over him, paranoid glances at caregivers, restless nights replaying Anna's voice. For your good. His daughter, who once praised Anna as an angel, avoided interviews entirely. When pressed by reporters, she simply whispered, "We trusted her. That's the part I'll never forgive myself for." But the true final twist didn't emerge until months after the trial. While cleaning out Anna's rental home, investigators found a small locked box hidden in the back of her closet. Inside were journals, meticulously written, cataloging her thoughts during each assignment. Each journal entry read like a confession, but also like a manifesto. Wealth makes people blind. They never see the hand that feeds them could also starve them. Each dose, each forged line of ink. It is not crime, it is correction. They cling to life as though they deserve it. But I know better. I've seen what greed does. I watched my father rot in a hospital hallway while his boss dined on steak. I swore I would even the scales. More disturbing still, one journal listed future names, people she had researched, elderly widowers, business owners, retired doctors. None had yet been approached. She was already planning her next victims. This discovery rattled the community even further. The Collins case wasn't just a tragedy. It had stopped a chain of deaths before they could happen. But had it really stopped all of them? For every Anna caught, how many others were slipping through? How many kind caregivers, how many loyal companions were quietly reshaping lives from the shadows? Anna herself never wavered. In prison interviews, she maintained her philosophy. "They call me a monster because they need the comfort of a label," she told one journalist. "But monsters kill for hunger, for pleasure. I killed for balance. If you can't see the difference, then perhaps you deserve the same fate as the men I corrected." The reporter ended the interview early. The Collins case became a cautionary tale, taught in nursing schools, debated in ethics classes, whispered in hospitals. It forced families to ask themselves questions they had never wanted to confront. Who do you really trust with the keys to your life? How well do you know the person holding your medicine at night? And yet the scariest part wasn't the trial, or the journals, or even Anna's lack of remorse. It was the letter. A single piece of mail that arrived at the Collins home 6 months after the sentencing. It was postmarked from inside the state prison, addressed not to Mr. Collins, but to Evelyn. Inside, written in Anna's neat, careful handwriting, were just 4 words. "You saved him once." No signature, no return address. Just a reminder that even locked away, Anna had found a way to slip back into their lives. One final time. And that was the last shadow she left behind. Because true evil doesn't always vanish when the bars close. Sometimes it lingers, waiting, watching, and making you wonder, every time you swallow a pill or trust a smile, who's really keeping you alive, and who's slowly bringing you closer to your grave. For every Anna caught, how many others were slipping through? How many kind caregivers, how many loyal companions were quietly reshaping lives from the shadows? Anna herself never wavered. In prison interviews, she maintained her philosophy. "They call me a monster because they need the comfort of a label," she told one journalist. "But monsters kill for hunger, for pleasure. I killed for balance. If you can't see the difference, then perhaps you deserve the same fate as the men I corrected." The reporter ended the interview early. The Collins case became a cautionary tale, taught in nursing schools, debated in ethics classes, whispered in hospitals. It forced families to ask themselves questions they had never wanted to confront. Who do you really trust with the keys to your life? How well do you know the person holding your medicine at night? And yet, the scariest part wasn't the trial, or the journals, or even Anna's lack of remorse. It was the letter. A single piece of mail that arrived at the Collins home 6 months after the sentencing. It was postmarked from inside the state prison, addressed not to Mr. Collins, but to Evelyn. Inside, written in Anna's neat, careful handwriting, were just 4 words. You saved him once. No signature, no return address. Just a reminder that even locked away, Anna had found a way to slip back into their lives. One final time. And that was the last shadow she left behind. Because true evil doesn't always vanish when the bars close. Sometimes it lingers, waiting, watching, and making you wonder, every time you swallow a pill or trust a smile, who's really keeping you alive? And who's slowly bringing you closer to your grave? If you found this story eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with others who need to hear it. Comment below. Was Anna purely evil, or was there more to her motive than anyone realized? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And stay tuned. Our next case will reveal a betrayal even harder to believe.